order and acknowledge that we are standing on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. And first item is the adoption of the agenda. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And today we have from the CBRD, Russell Dyson and Chris LaRose. You're going to talk to us about the sewer conveyance project. So gentlemen, you have the podium and take your time and it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Chair and Council.
Oh yeah, sorry, Russell. Just press the mic, make sure it's red.
Oh, they're used to this. Don't worry. Yeah.
Are yours working?
That's never happened at the CBRD. Mayor and Council, thank you very much for having us tonight. To staff, members of the public, we appreciate this opportunity to talk to the town of Comox about a very significant project. We want to review with you the planning work that's led us to where we are at today, talk to you about the project, the opportunities, and maybe a little bit of the inconvenience we might realize in realizing this project, but the enormous potential of the project and what it means. We're here to talk about sewage conveyance, and it's probably the most exciting topic in local government. It's probably why you ran for office. It certainly is something that has been on the minds of many of your councillors that represent you, the town, at the Sewage Commission, and we're very grateful for your wisdom and your participation on the decision and policy that's set. So my name is Russell Dyson. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer of the Comox Valley Regional District, and I'm here with Chris LaRose, who's the Senior Manager of Water and Waste, or Liquid Waste. And standing behind Chris and I are a very incredible team of professionals that help and guide us in the financial aspects, the communications, the technical aspects of this project, and it certainly takes a lot of that on. But we are also very grateful for the support that we get from the municipalities. We work in close association with your staff, Shelley, Craig, your administrator, and your CFO in terms of the financial aspects of this project, and also with the staff of the City of Courtenay too. So many thanks for all those that stand behind Chris and help us. So why are we here and why are we talking about sewage conveyance? I'm sure it's something that we're all aware of, and one of the most important drivers for this project and for us to replace our sewage conveyance, that which transports our sewage to the treatment plant, is, as we know, the Willamar Bluffs. And when this system was first established 30 years ago, the best possible location for conveying sewer was along the foreshore. In those times, we were able to do that. It meant that there was little elevation. The pumps that were required were modest, and it burned less energy. But as we know, over time, Willamar Bluffs is subject to major storms, tidal events or otherwise, and it's undermined the infrastructure that we have in place. And it's a threat to the quality of our infrastructure. The potential of a catastrophic break of that conveyance line would pose harm to the waters of Bain Sound, and certainly to the reputation of all of us in Comox Valley. But we've been mindful of that, and we've been preparing a plan to replace that. But as time goes on, just like to remind you too that there are other components to the system that require the urgency of us acting on this and undertaking this project. And the illustration here is of our pump stations. We require pump stations, the Courtenay Pump Station and the Comox Pump Station on Jane Place to transfer sewage into the conveyance line and move it along. And those are systems that are old and aging and are in need of remediation too. We could potentially proceed with that, but it is far more efficient and effective to do all of this work at once. And just to think that those pump stations are so critical, not only for moving our sewage, but respond to our rain events that are increasing in magnitude. So it's very important that we have solid, sound infrastructure, not only in our conveyance lines with pumps. And then the other thing is that other parts of the system, especially the types of sewage conveyance that we have on Dyke Road, we have found over time that won't meet the test of time and are subject to failure as well. This is just an example of the type of conveyance pipe that we used on Dyke Road, and it is also prone to the potential of failure and damage to our environment and our work. So this is a very high priority project, but It needs to be done in a sound way and in a way that minimizes the disruption of the construction and sees the project delivered on time and on budget, which is our motto. So a lot has been done over the last 4 years. I've talked about the urgent need, but it was decided that we would back up and do a liquid waste management plan. And what that did is it took community members, volunteers from our community that represented business, represented the environment, represented residents and ratepayers. And they came together with technical experts and took a look at all the potential options of how we could deliver this project or how we could do it. 20 or more different ideas that were narrowed down to a short list that was eventually narrowed down to the project that we have before us today. That work also took a look at our treatment at the plant. Is it right? What should we do to be upgrading treatment? What types of treatment shall we do? And there will be improvements to treatment coming in the future with UV protection in terms of that which goes out our outfall, all as a result of this work that has been done. It is, again, all about protecting the environment. It is also ensuring that we have the infrastructure in place to support our businesses, our hospitals, our schools, our institutions, and the growth that we expect within our community in a responsible way. All of this to say, Chris will go into the details. We are now at the point where we're looking forward to construction starting in the spring of 2023. So this 4 years, there has been a ton of engagement on this. I thank every member of the public, every local organization that has come through. We've met with them through the pandemic. The pandemic has actually improved the way that we interact with the public because we now do meetings online. What that means is people can participate in their living rooms. They can participate if they are in Vancouver or in our community. It doesn't rely on them necessarily coming to a public event. We record the event. Everybody sees everybody's questions and the information that's shared, and that's all available to everybody. So while it has depersonalized things, it has definitely led to better, improved communication with the public, and they've taken advantage of that. And we have also, where possible, had those open houses for immediate contact with owners, businesses and otherwise, and that will continue, especially as we narrow the scope of the project and we need to meet with your business community and those that will be affected by the project. So a ton of engagement has happened throughout the community in various means and ways to arrive at the solution that we have. There are impacts to our residents within electoral area B or otherwise, but I think for the most part, we satisfied their concerns and we have a sound project. I'm now just going to turn it over to Chris. We'll tag team for the rest of the presentation, and he'll talk about the specifics of what is in place or what is proposed with this project.
Great, thanks, Russell, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for your time. Russell did a great job of updating you on how we got to where we are today, which is at the beginning stage of implementation of this major project. So I'll start here with a slide providing a high-level overview of the scope of the project from west to east. And then I'll dive into some more detailed slides, just kind of with some more detailed updates. So just at a high level, as Russell mentioned, just thinking back to that slide with the 3 photos of it, the drivers for the project. Primarily, we're looking at that section of exposed force main along Belmoral Bluffs, but also the capacity of our pump stations. And that rigorous planning process that Russell highlighted or described, was in fact a 2 to 3 year process of analysis. And through that process, we became aware of additional risks that we weren't clear on before. And the end result is that we've ended up with a project which is effectively replacing the major conveyance components. So a full replacement of the Courtney pump station, a major upgrade to the Comox station, and then a full replacement of that force main from west to east. Earlier on in the process, there had been some conversations about retaining in use sections of the more sheltered force main in the estuary. But through that planning process and a value engineering process, we did discover that existing pipe would have some intolerable risks for continuing operation. So the project will be delivered in two primary contracts. Roughly speaking, it's the section within the town being delivered by a traditional project delivery method. So design, bid, build. So working with a detailed designer to develop a design right through to 100%. So in close collaboration with the town staff. and then tendering and construction. Whereas the rest of the contracts, so everything outside of the town largely, will be delivered by a design build, where we procure a design build, a constructor earlier on in the process and then work with them on the design. So there'll be interface points on either end of the town, and also at the Comox pump station, which is one piece which will be delivered via the design build. So the total price tag is currently sitting at $82 million for the full replacement. So zeroing in on the western section of the project alignment, starting with the Courtney pump station. So one of those pieces of information that really came about through the planning process was understanding the seismic risk associated with that existing pump station. So in addition to that capacity constraint, we also have significant concerns about that facility, which was built 40 years ago before the modern seismic standards. It's also very vulnerable to the local effects of climate change. That station is located at the floodplain level and is very likely to flood over the coming decades. So all of those factors have pushed us to siting and building a new pump station. So moving east from there, so it'll be a new force main running along Comox Road, and that's just to the beginning of that orange oval. And the other piece, that significant piece or complexity to the project that's emerged, has been kind of the growing awareness of the sensitivity of that area from an archaeological perspective. So that's pushed us to move off of Comox Road and cut through the farm fields far enough back from the water that it's not as archaeologically sensitive. And so we'll be cutting through the agricultural land all the way to the west boundary of IR1, where we come back down to Comox Road, and then cut along the road right of way through IR1 and up the hill, so that the project includes an upgrade to the Comox First Nation pump station. That's the first circle. And then the second circle just highlights where the interface between those contracts will be. So at the bottom of the hill. So the same contractor that will be building in your streets will be starting at the bottom of Comox Hill and working their way up. The next circle at the far right of the screen there is highlighting the location of a hydraulic and odor control facility that will be located somewhere in the vicinity of the Glacier View Drive area. And that's because it's a high point in the line, and there needs to be an ability to let air in and out of the line at that location. So this slide, I'll walk you through the town of Comox improvements, but before that, Russell just has some context.
Thanks very much, Chris. So I think what's very important is that when you're in my position and you're helping to guide these projects on behalf of the Sewage Commission in this case, you need to be flexible and you need to look at different options. And I'll be honest with you, when I look at this project, initially I looked upon it as, how do we deliver this project on time and on budget? And in order to do that, what you do is you limit the risk and you limit the scope of the project. And my focus in the beginning was really, let's put the pipe in the ground and repair the street to minimum standard and get her done and thread it through all your infrastructure otherwise. But I had to listen, right? You can't just go head on through a community like Comox, and it is the individuals of Jordan and Shelley that said there's a different way of delivering this project. And I think they were probably bringing to the table the interest of Comox, and that is, you have works to do and you have projects to do. And maybe some of those projects have been delayed or otherwise on account of our work, but there's no question, in order to deliver this project in the best interest of the ratepayers, let's come together and try and provide opportunities and synergies to work together and do it all at once. So we're in the final stages of bringing to your council and to our Sewage Commission the concept where we will coordinate our works and work together. And it may be that that Sewage Commission takes on the oversight of the various projects that you require, whether it's traffic circles or other things, but your staff will be involved and help us and assist us in that being delivered. And so we're doing the final strokes on sort of how that will work and an agreement that will take place as to who will be responsible for what. But I think this is really exciting, right? This is how projects should be provided, where governments come together, where they accomplish things together, where they work cooperatively like this. This means less disruption to the public because it's all done at once, as opposed to streets being left to be fixed or done later at later stages after one project and another proceeds. So I'm very excited about this. Chris will walk you through the details of the of how we plan on working within your town boundaries, and then we'll go on to talk about the rest of the project. But I just wanted to provide you that perspective because I think this really is exciting, and it is really a good way for us to undertake and do business in the Comox Valley.
Thanks, Russell. Yeah, so as Russell highlighted, so we've got a combination of the green pipe alignment showing, which is very similar to the last time Russell and I presented to council last year. And then the red highlights are those elements of surface works that are likely to be included within the project scope once that project agreement is finalized. Two changes that I want to highlight since the last time we presented are originally the concept was actually to tunnel through Comox Hill, so in the area of Glacier View Drive. That's since flipped to cut and cover through that section. And the other one is the conversion of part of the alignment from Comox Road past Anderton down to Beaufort. Otherwise, the alignment remains the same. So up Comox Hill, right on Rodello, along Beaufort, all the way to Stewart, up to Balmoral and to Torrent. So first, a circle on the left would be a potential roundabout located at the intersection of Glacier View and Comox. A second potential roundabout located at the intersection of Rodello and Comox Avenue. The large rectangle in the center there would be a street restoration between Church and Gordon. The little kind of off-red colored bit at the bottom there is a new force main that would come up from the Comox pump station, so up Jane Place, to tie into that new force main. So that piece would be delivered by the separate contract, whereas the rest of this the concept is to be delivered under a single contract. And then continuing up Stewart to Balmoral, a replacement of a sidewalk section on the east end or west end of Balmoral, and then a complete replacement of the street on Balmoral leading up to Torrance before conversion to the other contract and the start of the tunnel under Lazo Hill. So as Russell mentioned, we're currently going back and forth with the town staff, reviewing that project agreement, and hope to bring that through the council at some point in the near future. So zeroing on the details to the east of the town. So one of the key constraints for the project was the height of land. So the original force main, shown in kind of teal color on the bottom right, had the benefit of running along the foreshore the entire way, which avoided having to go up and over the hills, the heights of land. Given the environmental risk that we now understand or realize on the foreshore, we've flipped to the overland route, and we therefore have to deal with the heights of land. So as I mentioned in the last slide, we came to terms with cut and cover of Comox Hill, but the height of land on Lazo Hill, particularly at Butcher's Road, which rises up to about 60 meters, was just not acceptable for the project. So that led to development of this concept, which we're now implementing, which is a horizontal directional drilled tunnel from near the intersection of Torrance and Hawkins, Lazo, under that height of land over to Moreland Road. We'll do our best. Yeah. So on Moreland, back to cut and cover, and then across Lazo Marsh to the treatment plant. One of the other key changes here that we've been able to make to the project since the last time we presented was something inherent to this HDV installation is the need to assemble the full length of pipe on the surface before it's drawn through the hill. And the previous concept was for that pipe lay down to occur along Balmoral Avenue. But we heard very clearly from town staff, from councillors and the public at our public open houses that just the scale of the impact that would introduce. So we worked really hard with our engineering consultants to develop this alternate concept, which would see us lay down the pipe, that graphic at the bottom left, a more convoluted pathway, but following that that section of cut and cover across the marsh, through the treatment plant and down the Brent Road right of way, almost all the way to the beach. So that's where that pipe would be laid out, assembled, pressure tested before being drawn back into the hill. So we've thereby avoiding that additional impact to the public along Balmoral Avenue. And finally, just wanted to end with a project timeline. So one of the biggest potential impacts from the project to the community, to residents and businesses, is from traffic. As you saw on the first slide of the project scope, it stretches almost 11 kilometers from end to end. Much of that alignment is along public roadways, with the potential, if not done right, to cause significant disruption to the community. So featuring pretty heavily on this timeline are some key milestones with respect to mitigating those traffic impacts. So we've already begun outreach to key stakeholders. So I met in a council chambers not long ago with the Comox Business Improvement Association, just to provide a similar overview of the project and hear from them, start that process of understanding what those potential impacts could mean to the community, and brainstorm ideas on how we can help minimize them. So we're kind of keeping that going, and meeting with all of the other key stakeholders, communicating to them the scale of the potential impacts, and hearing suggestions on what we could do to mitigate impacts. We're also working with the City of Courtenay to learn from their lessons learned associated with the recent Fifth Street Bid project, which also resulted in significant road disruption, so that we can apply those lessons to this project. So over the summer, we'll be working to develop a traffic management strategy, and also in close collaboration with the intergovernmental working group that we formed to ensure that that we're coordinating a coordinated response from local governments, just given the multi-jurisdictional nature of these impacts. Any impacts to Comox Road will drive more traffic down Lerwick, Ryan Road, and through other parts of Courtenay, and likewise through Back Road. So that strategy will then be fed into the procurement processes for both contracts and help constrain the traffic management plans that are developed by those contractors. And then in the fall, we'll also be undertaking some public engagement with the public through a variety of media, but including public open houses. And that the output of that will also be fed into the procurement process and help guide the traffic management plans. So those will be finalized in winter of 2023, and then we're currently tracking for a beginning of construction in April or May of 2023, for a duration of about 18 months. So looking like we'll be finished by the end of 2024. Some of the key pieces that came out of that consultation with the Comox BIA, just regarding the seasonality of the work, the fact that just the level of traffic and the use of the Marina Park during the summer, and how we should do it, at all costs avoid disrupting the access to and from Marina Park during the summer. So we've definitely heard that loud and clear. The need to provide very clear sources of information for the public, so that everybody knows where to check for the latest conditions regarding delays, detours, that type of thing. And more generally, just conveying confidence in our approach, and that we'll be able to navigate this project without overly impacting residents and businesses in Comox. So that's all I have for you today. I'm going to pass you back to Russell to continue.
Thank you very much. We're almost there, just 2 more slides, and this really is an exciting time for sewer in the Comox Valley. Not only are we solving our conveyance problems, or going to, but we also have a solution thanks to the support of the Sewage Commission with respect to an ongoing problem with respect to failing septic systems in the south, and that is our Sewer Extension South project. As you are well aware, because I know how important the shellfish industry is to the town of Comox, and I think we're celebrating the shellfish industry coming up this weekend. Now, you're more than aware of the impacts of poor quality water on what is BC's most central location for the production of shellfish, it's so important to our community. And yes, our old communities of Union Bay and Royston on very small lots with modest amounts of quality soil for septic systems and old systems, there are failures, and that is resulting in poor water quality in Bain Sound. It's not the only problem. There are other areas in other jurisdictions. There are other sources of this from other pleasure craft or otherwise, but this certainly is part of the problem. The regional district has been working at least for the last 20 years to provide a solution. We've come forward with a number of referendums that have failed in the area, all of which were premised on the fact that we would establish a standalone separate sewage treatment plant for the community, and that would be run and operated in isolation of what we have here. Over the last couple of years, in consultation with the Sewage Commission, and in consideration also of our relationship with Comox First Nation, who will be looking at the potential of receiving treaty settlement lands in the south that require services, we've come together and agreed that sewer will be provided to the south through the Sewage Commission's works. Chris and his team have done analysis to ensure that this will not hamper those that currently benefit from the system, the town of Comox and the city of Courtenay, Department of National Defense, that we have the capacity. In fact, it will be an infusion of financial gain for the Sewage Commission. It already has resulted in over $500,000 contributed from Area A, which went into some of our capital works. It will result in CECs being paid to the system for those to connect. It has resulted in us having a community benefit agreement with the Comox First Nation to have their support with conveyance. And it is just generally a good thing for the regional district, and it is all in line with the regional growth strategy and the policies with respect to development and support of those areas that have failing systems. So what the result is that you will have before you, I think it's on your agenda tonight, a request to endorse the amendment to the service establishment bylaw to allow electoral area 8, at least a portion of it, only that portion that will be provided services in the Royston Union Bay area, and the treaty settlement lands of Comox First Nation to be added to the service area. So a resolution will be required from yourself as well as Courtney. Basically, what is proposed is a system similar to what we have here of conveyance lines and pumps that will take untreated sewage from Union Bay, from the Union Bay Estates development within the growth node of the regional growth strategy, and from Royston, bring it to the siphon at the Courtney pump station, and then through our conveyance to the treatment works. The result is untreated sewer goes to the outfall at Cape Lazo. Previous proposals for treated sewer were to be dumped in Bain Sound, which, even though it was treated, was unfavorable and did not meet a social conscience. So a very good solution that brings a partnership of the areas of the regional district together to work in collaboration and cooperation, supported by the Sewage Commission and supported by electoral area and the Comox First Nation. So we look forward to your response to the request to consider the resolution. If you have any questions on that, we are available either tonight or a later time if that is at another point in your agenda at another time. So that wraps it up for the presentation from Chris and I. We're available to answer any of your questions, and we really thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Do we have any questions from council? Councillor Swift, Bissinger, and Minions.
Thanks for the presentation. I've seen this a number of times. You've got some nice new pictures now, though, so it's great to see. And I'm really pleased that we're coming to the place where we can actually start digging. But what we haven't talked about a lot are the upgrades to the Jane Place pump station. And I know I think we were talking about needing bigger pumps, but I'm wondering if there's any mitigation that has been considered given climate change to the level. I know the other pump station we're moving, but that would be more of a challenge here.
Yeah, great question. I can speak to that. So the Jane Place pump station on Jane Place was initially predicted or required to just have an update to the pumps, but given the reason that you just mentioned, so our initial focus was on flood proofing the Courtney pump station. And we were contemplating installation of a flood-proofing wall at the Jane Place pump station. It's very footprint constrained, as you're aware. When we looked into that, because the collection pipes will pass under that wall and come into the pump station, if there was in the event of a flood situation, the nearby collection pipes would get flooded. That water would come up inside the pump station, and it would flood. So our scope is now changing to include a more significant upgrade to that facility, including waterproofing the building. So in particular, all of the electrical controls and backup generator. So last week or the week before, we met with the local residents. So we did a targeted mail out to residents on Jane Place and overlooking that area to let them know of the change in scope and to inquire about their priorities in terms of the noise, odor, visual impact. We've got a lot of really excellent feedback, and we're zeroing in on a scope for that facility that really blends the facility better into that neighborhood, and then delivers a facility that is resilient to the local impacts of climate change and sea level rise.
Councilor Bissinger.
Sure. Thanks for the presentation and for getting us up to date. And thank you for everyone that's been working towards making it better for the town of Comox with all the construction in town. I appreciate that. Just a question for, like, it looks like we're almost doubling the conveyance by adding the south extension. So understanding that like sewer treatment is user fee based on quantity, all of a sudden we're doubling probably the amount of pumps, the amount of maintenance, the amount of, inflow and infiltration coming from that area for a fraction of the users that are actually going to be connected to the system. And to this day, without those developments going in, it'll be, it's like, pennies on the dollar or whatever it is. So how is that distribution going to be made for taxpayers, Comox and Courtney, that basically are paying for twice the length of pipe? And obviously they're going to have the biggest ratio of service, but not have half the infrastructure, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I definitely get what you're getting at there. So that new pipe shown as the upward marching arrows up to the Courtney pump station. So that's a force main, so not a gravity line, so not susceptible to inflow and infiltration. And then that large looking area in the south, is the future potential, distant future build out. Initially, there would be much smaller collection areas with much smaller gravity collection system, much less inflow potential. So proportional to the number of connections that are actually brought on. So we don't predict a significant load of I&I from that area until that distant future where that entire area gets built out. The planning process we've walked through over the last several years has included kind of population projection and flows from the south. We've modeled in kind of the more conservative or higher growth rates in the south, in sizing the Courtney pump station, sizing the pipe, and looking at the expansion plans for the water pollution control center. As Russell mentioned, given the significant potential or revenue as development occurs in the south, we'll be paying into the service through capital improvement cost charges. So, and then a dilution of the operational cost for the whole service area. And that's how current users of the system should see benefits over time from that connection.
Yeah. I guess just considering that now we're basically, I don't know if the CEO was saying it was like $82 million for the conveyance. So is it like $40 million for the south extension of the sewer? And if so, like that basically is going to be eaten up by Comox and Courtney taxpayers, or is there grant funding coming in, or is there like money other than like $500K coming from Area A?
So so it's an excellent point. We didn't clarify that, but let me do so. So that the cost of that line will be borne entirely by the South partners, so not by the service. That being said, once it's built, it will be handed over to the service, but the capital cost will not be borne by your taxpayers or Courtney. While it will become regional infrastructure after it's built, So the long-term obligation becomes the region's, but not that initial cost. So the money is collected as the development occurs, will help fund that long-term replacement and other projects within the valley. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just add the financial plan for the southern conveyance and pumps is a three-way agreement where Comox First Nation, Union Bay Estates, and the local community will be contributing. And for the local community's contribution, because it's enormous on a per parcel basis, we have applied for grant funding to help support that. But even so, it is still a substantial cost to them even with grant funding to support their portion. But the grant funding can, of course, supplement development costs. So there has to be a fair contribution from Comox First Nation and Union Bay Estates.
Thanks, Councillor Minions.
Thanks both for the presentation today. It's good to see it moving along. For the portion that's going to go from Torrance to Moreland and the underground digging, has the really exact route been selected now? I know there was testing going on, and that's kind of where some of our Comox residents and Area B residents were more concerned. Has kind of a final route been determined for those properties, or is that still in the works?
Yeah, thanks, Russell. So yes, the route has been selected. We are well on our way to securing the support and from the 15 property owners that are located over top of that pipe. So we've engaged a properties agent to act on our behalf. So we've secured consent agreements with all but one of those properties. So there are a handful. It's roughly split actually between the town and Area B. So we're working to respond and address the concerns from a couple of remaining residents, and we're also planning to extend community water to a couple town of Comox properties that are immediately adjacent to that pipe to help address their concerns regarding the impact to well water. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I have a couple quick questions. So Chris, you mentioned something about the hydraulic and odor control at Glacier View Drive. Is that something that the local residents should be aware of? Is that going to off gas in the area, or what's the issue with that?
Yeah, so that facility is anticipated to be like a roadside kiosk type of just picture of like a BC Hydro transformer style kiosk, and that's largely an odor control system. So it'll be a compact, non-passive odor control system to treat the air that incidentally comes in or out of that facility. So there will be a small visual impact. So we're as of yet, we'll be working with the town staff to figure out exactly where to place that. It'll be somewhere unobtrusive. And to reassure you, it will have a modern odor control system in there, so that when in the situations where there is air coming out of it, it's treated and non-odorous.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so treated similar to what we talked about with the bioreactors a 3 years ago, how, those were off gassing and then they had to be covered. So then there was a scale that was used. So just want to be sure that this kiosk will be scent free. Yes. Yeah. No. Thanks for referencing that example. So it's actually similar technology to what was implemented at the treatment plant successfully. So that much larger project was completed last year and to great success. Yeah, we haven't had any complaints from the neighborhood since. So the carbon treatment technology that was implemented there on a smaller scale will be packaged inside this kiosk. So that air will be pushed through successive carbon filters to the point where it will be non-odorous. Yeah, so it's a commitment. Thank you. Yeah. And then one final, since no one else has any more. So we talked about the South Sewer area going through Union Bay and the old septic systems and that. And, there has been some challenges in those areas trying to get those folks to buy into the program years ago. And so once the sewer system goes through there, do they have an option to connect to the sewer line, or can they just opt out and still use their old septic systems?
It's something we're considering. The intent is that the service area, all individuals will connect within the service area. But we also are very mindful that there are some citizens that have made a major investment in a package treatment plant in recent years, right? Spent $30,000 to $40,000 on something that is currently working well. Our electoral area committee and the citizens, when we reached out to them, asked us to look at whether there may be ways or means to provide some variation on the timing of their connection, or something that recognizes the investment that's made. So I don't have anything tangible, but it is something that we're going to look at. Ultimately, we need their support, that the community support to become involved, either in the form of liquid waste management plan or referendum or otherwise. So we are very mindful of listening to the public and coming forward with a plan that tries to meet the needs of everybody as best as we can. Yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. No other further questions? Do you have one?
Thanks for the presentation. And as you mentioned, as we go through, there's going to be a number of service improvements, and Shelley Ashfields has prepared a short presentation to go over what's going to be done there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me. Let's wait for the presentation to get up. As Regional District had mentioned, this is a pretty significant project, as they had demonstrated through their presentation. So I just thought I'd highlight a little bit on the impacts or the projects that they had highlighted through the town of Comox, just so that we can see what that community benefits or the improvements or the infrastructure improvements that the community can see based on the construction of the conveyance project coming through the town, which I use their slide on this one. So that just kind of highlights the bigger capital projects. So some of the coordination and the partnerships that we need to go through, as well as Russell mentioned, is that, you know, the impacts it's going to have on traffic and businesses and our residences. It makes sense for us to coordinate all of these projects at once, and showing a partnership with different jurisdictions throughout the town. Obviously, it doesn't get supported well once we come in and do a project, and 2 or 3 years later, another jurisdiction comes through and then tears up the road. So this is great that we're able to coordinate and partner and making sure that we can advance our projects. So the 3 main things that we've done to coordinate and work with the regional district on this is that we looked at our asset renewal program. And so that took a lot of staff time. So we've done that. And then we also delayed some capital upgrades, specifically the resurfacing of Torrent and Balmoral. You guys probably got some complaints on that. I think that's been on our books for the last decade. So that's going to get done. So that was good. And then advancing some of our capital upgrades as well. So when the regional district confirmed the alignment and working with staff on where that would go, we looked at our capital upgrades and said, okay, what do we have that we're going to do within the next 5 or 10 years that then we can coordinate those projects, which here they are. So there's 8 that council approved in our financial plan that lists them all. So so that's a summary of what they are, and then the budget approved in 2022 and 2023 and 2024, so that we can partner and align with the time frame that the regional district has. So I'll go through each one of those in a little bit more detail, not too much detail, just an oversight, just so that we can find out again what those infrastructure improvements that the community can see following the construction of the conveyance project. So the first one I've highlighted is the Balmoral Sidewalk that we're going to be constructing on between Pritchard and Stewart. Balmoral is a minor collector road, so we're going to make sure that we design it to that long-term cross section, but we'll only be installing the sidewalk on the south side during this project. There is a is the light on this or not? Oh. Not that one. Anywho, there's an existing bus stop. Basically, I think it's fronting 1567 Balmoral, which doesn't have a sidewalk. So that was one that we advanced, thinking that would be good to have pedestrian connectivity and safety for that area. So that's one of the projects that we have that's currently under design right now. The next one is the Glacier View Roundabout, which you guys are well aware of that one. This is a concept plan. We've awarded to a firm in Vancouver, GHD Consulting, and are bringing some creative ideas. I'm pretty excited to share this with council once we get some options here and confirm what that might look like. So this concept might change drastically, but we'll keep you guys informed as that unfolds. The Comox Rodello Roundabout, which you guys have seen this one as well. We just received the 100% design, so staff are going to review that to ensure that that's good to go, and then we'll probably bring that back to council as well. So that one's been well underway. It was at 95% to begin with, so that one's kind of advanced a little bit further than the others. Beaufort upgrade between Church Street and Norden Street, fronting Town Hall here, is on the books. It's been within our capital plan in the next 5 years. So we've awarded that, and the design is underway. The cross section, Beaufort Avenue, is classified as a minor collector. So it's shared bike lanes, parking on the one side, and then sidewalk connectivity, improvement of our crosswalks that we're going to do as well. Some safety improvements as well as some resurfacing. So there's some concept plans. We're just very at the preliminary stage on this one, but just looking at different widths for sidewalks as well as impacts to our existing infrastructure. Doing these infill projects, obviously we're a little bit limited in what existing road dedication that we have. So unfortunately, some things have to give and take so that we can make sure that the project or the design is successful. Sure, yeah.
Is the intention for the sidewalk on both sides?
Yes. Yeah. For the sidewalk on both sides is just parking on the north side. And then we'll do some of the improvements. Fronting the Destair House will have the sidewalk, and then formalizing the sidewalk in front of the Blackfin as well. And then connecting it in front of the town hall up to Church Street as well.
And so what about the notes that is actually the scale in the
Fronting Toscanos or the opposite side? Yeah, so I got the design team to look at that entire intersection, and then more specifically kind of coming up Port Augusta a bit, fronting Toscanos, because the sidewalk and where they had the parklet, try to maybe formalize that. So kind of extending the project limits a little bit so that we can potentially consider those improvements at the same time. So we'll bring that back to council as well. It's not in our budget. I don't know what the increase of cost that would be, but I thought let's just get it designed so that when those improvements do happen, at least obviously ultimately the design is complete, that what we're designing on Beaufort is going to make sure it can accommodate the upgrades on Port Augusta. So we're going to look at those improvements, yeah. And we'll probably continue the design and keeping the parklet for the grind because that's been successful. So we'll, yeah, continue with that. I highlighted hydro on this one because this is our DPA, Town of Comox's DPA #1, which is the downtown corridor, which includes the section of Beaufort that we're upgrading. As part of our subdivision and development servicing bylaw, all respect to development, all wiring should be underground. So that's at a huge cost. Potentially, we had initially had some discussions with BC Hydro, and they're looking at just high level about a $200,000 cost. We did some undergrounding on Comox Avenue, and we put the sidewalk in fronting Berwick, 2016, 2018, I believe it was. So we just did some cost comparison to that project to see what we would be looking at. And it's in the magnitude of $710,000. The $200,000 that we got from BC Hydro was just the electrical component. It doesn't include the civil construction costs. It doesn't include the TELUS costs as well, and Shaw and potentially Fortis, because we may need to move things within the road dedication to make some space. I'm trying. Just give you the red light and I'll keep pressing them. So where we're at right now is that with BC Hydro, this is, again, everything is very high level cost. They have a $5,000 design cost that we can pay that, and then they can take it further and really refine those costs, and then we can bring that back to council for a decision if you want to pursue with the requirement of undergrounding, or are we going to think of an alternate potentially? Yeah, waiting for a future development that could happen in the area, and then they can do the undergrounding at that time.
Yeah, it's likely with the amount of money it's going to take, it's going to be, I think, a significant decision for council whether you want to make that investment to do the undergrounding. If it's going to happen, this would be the best time. It's probably going to be the cheapest time. It'll also be the time that'll be all the costs on the town. So it's something for us to think about. And as we go in through this and think about it, the questions need to be asked. Is this something that we want to bear? And if it is, we move forward. If it's not, is it something you want to hope that over time will be borne by developers as they come in? Or is it something where you go, the cost of this just isn't worth it, we need to make changes? All of those decisions would be fraught with perils, no matter where you go, even making the changes, because we know that there's been some expensive requirements made for current business owners to do that. So I understand that there's history on this file as well, but given the potential costs of this, it's something that we've flagged and we will be bringing back to council for a future decision.
Great, thank you. And the next, this is the Balmoral and Torrent resurfacing. As you can see, Balmoral is a major collector, so that's the crossing at Brooklyn Creek, where we have the pedestrian beacons proposed for that location, and safety improvements. It'll be shared bike lanes, even though it's a major collector, which our cross section is dedicated bike lanes. It's very wide on Balmoral to start, but the pinch point is that culvert crossing. We just don't have the cross section to put in the dedicated bike lane. So I think we'll just probably leave the design as is and just have it as a shared bike route. Torrent is a minor collector. As you can see, that resurfacing has been hanging on there, so that would be really good to get that resurfaced. I think it was brought up at our open house last week about when that was going to get done. So that's an exciting project to get complete. That's been in the design and been completed for a number of years now. So that one's ready to go.
Do you mind if we ask a question as
No,
we're going
that's
along?
fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the previous slide there on Balmoral, right? So that's the creek is underneath there? Yeah. Okay, so I noticed when you're doing the Lazo project, you do have a speed hump in one area at an intersection. That to me looks like an area that could use a speed hump for slowing down some traffic. I know some cars do speed along there. Is that something we can consider? I know the town is risk averse with speed humps, but to me, it warrants consideration.
Yeah, we can definitely look at the speed and see what's happening in that area and put down some tubes. And I think we might have collected some data already.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it's on the higher threshold, so we can certainly look into that and maybe get some updated data as well, and we can bring that back or add it into the design.
Okay.
Consider that for sure.
Thanks.
So this is just sort of an engineering plan view, and you can kind of see the shaded part is the new asphalt resurfacing that'll get done as part of that project. And the acid renewal program as well that I had mentioned, that we, basically cameraed every storm and sanitary main along the conveyance route just to confirm that we're not going to resurface our roads, and then our infrastructure failed, as I mentioned, a couple of years later, and then we got to go in and replace it. And as well as staff inspections and review that our operations and public works guys have provided us as well, based on past history. So as Chris LaRose had mentioned, it's about 11 kilometers of road, and we're probably looking at approximately 3.4 kilometers of both sanitary storm and sanitary mains that we're going to replace along the way as well. So that'll be good. As you can see in the, I thought I had one sanitary, but they're all drainage that you can see they're in very poor condition. So that'll be really good too, to advance that renewal program and make sure that we get that infrastructure updated. And I believe that is all of the projects.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any other questions from council? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Shelley. Much appreciated. And before we move on, if our delegation would like to skedaddle out, you're more than welcome. You can stay for the rest of the meeting, but there you go. Okay. Thanks again, gentlemen. Much appreciated. Yeah. All right, thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to the adoption of the minutes. So as you see, there was some revisions that have been needed. So CAO, are you okay if we just go have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
Can I get you to pass resolution number 1 first, and then you can do
Okay.
2, 3, and 4.
Second.
Any questions on that? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, so for number 2, we will just need a motion to accept as amended.
Second.
Any questions? Sorry, Councilor Minnies, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just checking is the purpose of it is just to reflect exactly what was in the meeting, and there's no other changes except for that word of require versus it's a more stronger terminology. And that's why we're doing that. Just a bit of background on why we're having that rescinded.
I'll let Shelley explain.
In the initial resolution that was made, there was a phrase that was missed in the, like I say, in the initial resolution. And the phrase was, it's reflected at the end of the first part of the second resolution, where it says, see if I can find it here. Sorry, no, it's on the top of.
The change was that the original motion didn't include council's desire to have the ability of Comox plus one other jurisdiction provide a veto at the committee level. And so the change that we have here is to add that phrase back in. The Comox Valley Regional District has already been made aware of this, and this is just to correct it in our own records.
Councilor Swift? Sorry, Councilor Minions, were you okay with that? You're done with that?
Yeah, and so just to check, I did see that and understand that, and it was the other one, not that it's also the addition that we require the land acquisition. Was that one also being added in, or am I reading that incorrectly? As an amendment?
Limit on the number. Oh.
So it's really long, because in order to correct that section of the minutes, we need to bring back all of the other motions, amending motions and defeated motions, which were quite a few on that one. But the only change we're making right now, and Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, the only change we're making right now is adding in that section that requested that we would have veto power along with one other jurisdiction.
Okay, that's not how I read it, so I appreciate that. That's easier to vote on now. Thank you.
Clear as mud. Councilor Swift.
Thank you. I think it's of interest, and I don't know what happens now. Our letter was forwarded with the wrong motion and has already been discussed at the regional district level, and the move to establish park services proceeding.
We're going to have some discussions with the regional district on that. Ultimately, nothing has been moved that can't be undone. There's been no decisions that are finalized or can't change, but yes, the need to enter into those negotiations in establishing the service still remain.
Yeah, I think at the board level, they'd probably be interested in having some discussion around the governance piece.
Yeah. Councilor Grant.
Yeah, I think at the RD board, there was a lot of talk about equity of you know, who's gonna get what park and where, and you know, I think there's some misguidance there in that the way I see this will work is these parks will come up if you have a list, and it'll be when they come up. So you could have 3 of them all come up in Area C, and you might not see anything in Comox for 15 years, and then all of a sudden we might get one. I don't think that, and I think they're thinking that we'll go here and then we'll go there. I just don't see that being a realistic way. So I think there's a lot more to talk about there yet to make sure that we got this right.
Okay, thanks. Any other further questions on that? So this is to accept the motion as amended. All in favor? All right, that's carried. So that deals with number 2. So then we're going down to number 2, the resolution 22.158, or is that?
We're done.
Yeah, we're done with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great, thanks. So now the regular council meeting minutes from Wednesday, May the 18th for adoption.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? That's carried, thanks. So we have some consent agenda items, if I can get a motion to accept those.
Second.
Okay, so any questions, anything to pull out, Councillor McGowan?
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to address the one from number 1, if I can pull that. I just wanted to ask a question. It seems like there's 2 kind of versions of affordable, like the one being the 30% of income and the other being somehow compared to other price, like the other, how much houses are in general. And, you know, this one's pretty low.
Mhm.
Is there a way that we can separate those 2 terms so that we know what we're talking about? Because, like, you know, affordable isn't affordable.
Mhm.
And it's, you know, we're trying to get affordability, but what kind of affordability are we looking for? And yeah, it's just, it's one of those things we get a lot of
Mhm.
emails about that,
Mhm.
and not quite sure how to address that issue.
Councillor Grant's.
So this is one of the great debates that's gone on for the 20 years that I've been here. If you have 7 people sitting around a table, you'll have 7 different variations of what affordable housing is. And so we've tried to define this 100 different ways. And like, if you're going to go and get a mortgage, you need 39%. This uses 30. Everybody talks a different number. And it's sort of a catch-all word for whatever works best for you. So I would love to find a way to define it so everybody's singing out of the same hymn book, but I just don't know how you're going to do it.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right, anything else to bring out? Sorry. Oh, Marvin, go ahead.
Yeah, we have I think we have a definition in our policy, and
Affordable housing, yes, does have a definition that goes to the 30%.
but as far as what's happening when people are using it around the debate table, when you have people writing in, yeah, everybody's talking about something different.
That's kind of what I was getting at, and I appreciate that we have that down. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anything else to pull out? Seeing none, we will move on to the strategic priorities and action items from June the 1st.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Minions.
Yeah, thanks for staff for getting the Let's Talk Climate or Green Open House for Climate Adaptation sorted for June 29th. I believe that's the right date. 28th. It's all right, 28th. I'm just wondering where that will be advertised outside of, like, I know our reach for, let's say, website and social media is somewhat limited. So I'm just curious where that would be placed kind of in the next 2 weeks as far as small marketing budget.
Yeah, the plan was to do ads in the paper. I'll have to follow up with the team to see what's going on. Council knows we're in transition with communication, so that's a good question, and I appreciate it being asked because there's the potential that would have fallen through that transitional crack. So I will follow up tomorrow and let you know.
If I could make a suggestion, because people are eagerly coming in to pay their tax bills starting right now, maybe we can have something posted on the bulletin board, maybe on one of the plexiglass, just advertising it, getting that awareness out there. Yeah. Mhm. Okay, so all in favor of that? Carried. Okay, so the Comox Bay Sailing Club float house request. So we we have that report back, and what would council like to do? Okay,
Second.
all right, so for discussion. We can hold on to it for a while, and just have it received for information. Doesn't mean that we're getting rid of it. It just means that we're mulling it over. Perhaps maybe that's something the next council wants to deal with. You know, it's up to us. So, Councillor Grant, you had something to add?
Yeah, so I like this project a lot. I'm really not sure how much disruption it makes down at the marina. I mean, you would probably know more than I would on that. I think that this is a really good program, and if we could accommodate it somehow, that would make sense to me. But I think that we're a little sparse on detail as to what it is we would actually be doing. And they're also looking for some help with the cost of the slip. So, you know, I don't know. It's something I wouldn't want to put in abeyance and just forget about. But I think we need a little more detail for me.
Yeah. I can agree. Well, we had them as a delegation. Maybe we need a little bit more from the Parks Department as to the cost. I see that we'd be losing 2 dinghy spots, but maybe to Shelley, and since you don't have a parks person here, but so you'd be moving that one large wooden float over that has a lot of the kayaks and dinghies on it right now, and then you'd be losing some spots at the end.
I'm not exactly sure what spots. I think there was the 2 right at the end that he wanted to consider removing.
Right.
And in regards to like the costs and what we're looking at, I think that they're uncertain as well what that would look like. And I think that's why they are looking for a 3-year term from council so that they don't invest all their money into a structure or what it would look like without it going anywhere. So I think that's sort of the angle that the Sailing Club is looking at.
So then if we were to approve this, then they would be looking at fundraising somehow over the next 3 years to see what they can come up with. So we're not committing ourselves to anything other than if they came up with the money, we would provide them with the space. Is that how I read it?
Yeah, that's correct. So I would say that council would be committing to provide that space should they be able to construct. If council is looking for more information, I think I just need a little bit of direction on what information we're looking for. We've got the area where it'll go in, we'll lose the dinghy slips, we'll lose $650 a year in mortgage fees. So if council wants to send this back to staff, just a little more clarification on what information we can bring to you.
Yeah, because as Councillor Grant said, I think it's a great idea, getting youth out there sailing. I have a sailboat there. I love getting out on the water. It's just that by doing this, so now I know we've had some challenges in the past with the dragon boaters, finding spots for those large long boats. We're moving some dinghy spots out of there where there's no dinghy spots now, because I know people are looking for dinghy spots. There's nothing there. So are a couple people losing their spots? And so that's the kind of information I'm looking for before I jump into this. What is the impact to the dragon boaters? What is the impact to the other dinghy users? What is the impact to our taxpayers? These are things, because right now RCMSR does a great job. We don't get any money for the spot. We're paying the hydro, we're paying the water, and if we're going to continue giving these in-kind things, that's fine. But we should know how much, I guess, we're giving for our taxpayers all across the town. So you're comfortable with that information to go back? Do you want a motion on?
If council doesn't pass this, if council just leaves this as received for information, we can go back and bring the information that's been asked for so far. So, and that's what's going to happen to the dragon boats, the impact on ratepayers, and how many. So we know 2 dinghy spots will be lost, but what does that mean for a specific number of boats that won't have an ability to dock anymore?
Mm-hmm.
And we do know, and I can say we are, I think it's a surprise to nobody, we are at capacity in the marina. Adding this here will result in the loss of spots and will result in the loss of the ability for people who are there right now to continue to have space there.
Mm-hmm. And so with this, what a question, maybe no answer, but the Comox Bay Sailing Club would still retain the 2 spots they have with that one big float on there for the dinghies, right?
Correct.
Okay. That I do think they pay fair value for that one. That's not very. Okay, so Councillor Kerr.
I think I'd like to make the motion to put forward the alternative to the recommendation that we do support it tonight. So if I have a second here, I'll explain my reasoning why.
Okay. Go ahead.
So the Comox Bay Sailing Club, I mean, they made a really good presentation, made a really good case for this. You know, if I think of the uniqueness of the town of Comox, it is our marina. And, you know, this club provides a great service to our community, training our future sailors. We've often talked around this table in my short time here about more opportunities for youth and activities, getting them out on the water so that someday they'll have their own sailboat parked in the marina. I think that's a real advantage. I think it's a very also appealing thing to have another attractive float house down there. If people come down, they look at the SAR float house. I think this would be another kind of like eyepiece down there for people to have a look at and provide some interest. So I would support this. I think I have enough information personally to support it, but I also understand if majority of council disagrees.
Mm-hmm. So questions on that? Councillor Minions?
I can't recall from the past delegation, and I apologize. Do we know if the RCMSR, which it says will have enough clearance, but are they aware of this request or?
I believe they are.
They are,
I
and there
believe
was
those 2 groups talk quite a bit.
Okay, so
Yeah.
generally mutually.
Yeah.
Accepting. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Swift?
Well, I would also be in support of moving this forward because I think it would be nice to encourage these groups to continue in their efforts. I wouldn't want to set it back. So I would be in support of having this move forward.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Grant?
So Jordan, how much information do you think you can provide? Because I'm torn on this one and I'm inclined to agree with them that we should just move this along, get it going. I think it's a really great program and it'll bring vibrancy to our downtown, but is there anything earth-shattering that might come out of the information we're asking for? I mean, it doesn't sound like it to me, so.
I mean, I guess it depends on what the impact and who specifically the impact will be. Like I said, if council makes this decision and the building is built, there are people who have space at the marina now that will not have space moving forward. So if you want to have more information about who and the number of people that would be negatively impacted, this could, I guess that's hard for me to say whether that would be important enough for council to wait. We can probably get that information in short order and have this on an agenda coming up. But it's up to council. If you're comfortable to move forward now, that's fine with staff.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, Councillor.
Yeah, I think my preference would be if it is in short order and it's going to be 30 days and it's a 3-year outlook, as long as that's something that can be gotten in the next, I don't know about 60 days, if that's reasonable or not, but my preference would be to wait for that to understand if we're actually displacing to long-term or permanent, or I don't have enough information on those 2 slips.
Okay, and then I've got a question. So if you're going to dig that information up, and depending on what happens with Councillor Kerr's motion, but would it be possible, and I don't recall this from the presentation, the actual size of the structure, because, you know, at low tide, it's not an issue. You can see right through, and people use that promenade. They walk along there. I'm wondering if, you know, at high tide, if it's a peaked roof, you know, are they going to build it taller, you know, to make a sail loft that could impact the views from people who are walking? So those are some of the questions that I would have. And I do agree with Jonathan, Dr. All of the above, Councillor. Councillor Kerr. That I think it's a great idea, but yeah, I too would be a little more comfortable before I do agree with it to have a little bit more information, So seeing no further questions, so do you have a motion that we approve this? All in favor? And opposed? Okay, 2 opposed, so. Yeah. Pardon me? Yeah. So that's carried. So then, can we though still get the information of height from them? Like, do we have like a planning type of system down there that they can only build a certain height? That they can only build sloped roofs?
I don't think we get into roof design, but we, maybe we do, Marvin, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have maximum heights for the area down there.
Yeah, okay. Good. And then, I know I'm kind of doing this backwards, but I'm the mayor, I can, tying in the dragon boaters. So I know at a low tide that can get close to the rocks on the bank, but if that's going to be 40 feet long and 18 feet deep-ish, is it possible that we could have something that dragon boaters could tie up to the back of that and then have a little walkway on the side? So that way we're allowing the sail club, but we're also allowing the kayak or the dragon boaters as well. So if that's something that
we'll talk about it. I seem to recall that with the dragon boats, they are too fragile to have maybe tied up to the end because they're going to bottom out.
That's what I'm wondering. Maybe they'd be willing to come in a couple feet. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be enough because the low tides are quite low. So I'll have some further conversations and find out what's going to happen with the dragon boaters specifically, and we'll get back to you on that and the height.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, folks. Okay, so the affordable housing contribution updates. So we have some recommendations. We have some alternatives to recommendations. We have a whole bunch of discussion going on about this. So sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move alternate recommendation number 1. And I'm gonna say square feet instead of square meters, because I have no idea how big meters
Okay,
are.
and so for the sake of the folks watching, that the council affordable housing amenity contribution policy be amended to include a per door fee or square meter fee of X for multifamily development.
And I'm saying use the square meter or feet, whichever you like. And using a number of $5 a square foot for multifamily and $2.50 for rental. And that should get us some discussion started.
Okay. Second. So discussion. Councillor Grant.
Yeah. So my rationale for doing this is I think it's probably, I like the per door thing personally better, but I think that this is a B plus as far as that goes, and I think it's more palatable for most of council. I think that I'm watching our real estate market right now, and I know that like our interest rates have gone up about 33% in the last 2 months. I'm watching the prices start to drop. I'm watching listings coming on the market, and I don't think now is a time to really push too hard on something like this. I think that if we can even get 1 or 2 of the projects that are underway, we'll put money in the coffers that we otherwise wouldn't. And I think if we push too hard, we probably won't. I think also that it's easier if you want to raise these in the future, it's easier to raise them than it is to drop them. So I think for those rationales, I think that this is fair. This also puts us right in line with what other communities our size are doing. And so I think that it works for everybody. I would be personally quite surprised if many of these projects go through just based on the current market conditions, but you never know. If we have a chance, then to over ask would probably could be the death knell for some of them. I think it's also important that as you come out the other side and as the market starts to pick up again, whenever that may be, that you be ready and in a position to be able to capture those people as they come. We did that with our downtown revite, and we got them all redone. We've got Don Cameron did his project, and our downtown is far better. Had we over asked or not had that program in place, and we put that program in place 10 years prior to it actually happening. So I think that as we come out of whatever this is we're in, if we need to raise them at that point, we can always look at it and do it at that point. But I think it is a good stimulus as we go forward to either capture some that are still on the fence, deciding whether they want to develop in our downtown and putting money into our affordable housing contributions. And it leaves us in a good position should the market start to turn around, where we would actually be able to capture some and put money into the coffers.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on that? Councillor Minions.
Can I just get, that's a kind of a new method, and I was looking at square feet. Can you give those numbers one more time? I'm trying to recalculate what
So
that
I
looks
said,
like.
I said $5 per square foot. And so if you do that on 1,000 square foot, that's $5,000 per unit. And I said $2,500 on rental, which would be $2,500 on a 1,000 square foot rental unit.
So, sir, you said, what was your rental? Was it $2
I
per
said
square foot?
250.
$250.
Yeah. So it's basically, it's pretty similar to what you've got up there. We can discuss what the right number is, but I just picked those numbers because I think they're reasonable in today's market conditions.
So on a square meter basis, if anybody wants to make the conversion, the $5 per square foot translates into $53.82 per square meter, and the $250 per square foot translates to $26.91 per square meter.
Sorry, I got to speak in square feet because I have no idea what meters are. I missed that curve in school.
We're looking at 0.6 and 1.2 roughly for both of them.
Yeah. Councillor Bissinger.
Sure, thanks. And from the submissions we've had, I think it makes sense to go at a square meter fee. And I also like having a difference between the rental versus market. And looking at this beautiful table that we sort of laid out, I think you were talking about sort of ranges, and I think for rental, I'd go anywhere from the, I guess, 250 to 5 per square foot, and for market, I'd go anywhere from 1.2 to 1.8. So maybe that's, I'm not sure. I know, Jordan, when we chatted earlier, we were thinking maybe if we select a range and sort of see where the numbers fall, that's kind of what I would be going with.
Yeah, I think that would be good. And I think the way that Councillor Kerr has laid this out is a good idea, is to tackle is all of council comfortable with moving to a per square foot / per square meter method. And then that discussion can be laid to rest, and then you guys can get into the next discussion around amounts.
Yeah, I think is council in favor of that? Square meters. Okay. All right. Councillor Minions.
Yeah, I just want to start by saying I really appreciate the time and thoughtfulness we put on this topic, because it's been a couple months of, working through all the different players in community. And I think we've come to this in a relatively thoughtful and done our due diligence on it. So I really appreciate that everyone's come to the table with that. I really like the square meter approach, albeit the math changed really quickly there. But I also think we really should look at incentivizing rentals being built, as we may see rents come down and it become less desirable to build rentals, but we still will want a nice mix between market housing and rental housing. So I really like those two splits. So it sounds like we agree on many things so far, which is great. I would like to see the rentals be closer to that 1.2 number, as the reality is rents are extremely high right now, and it still is a somewhat profitable business in the rental market. And the lowest I would really want to see market go being, we've hit our peak market in February, March, and as much as they're speculating things have come down, they really haven't come down yet. So I would be looking at a 5,000 for rentals and a minimum of the 7,300 on market. And that would be my comfort level, which is kind of splitting roughly what staff recommendation at 1.6 would be. But incentivizing rentals for the longer term and getting that value on markets where I do think a lot of the developers and landowners have purchased the land in the last couple of years when it was at a lower price. So at the very minimum, I would want to see that 7,300 on the market still. And we can always go back and change it after.
Okay, so you said 50 and 65? One,
5,000 for the rentals, which is equivalent of 1.2,
right.
and a 1.8 to 2 on market, which is 73 to 8,100. But I really like the split and the per door square footage. Sorry.
Sorry, 25 or 50. So for the 50 or 70. Sorry, 10.
Yeah, whatever that means, yeah.
So 5, 6, or 7 hours.
Okay. No. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Councilor Fair, go ahead.
Well, it should be no surprise that I have a few things to say on this topic. And I really have enjoyed this process. I mean, any day that I get to use flip chart markers is a good day. I do want to thank, everyone around the table, CAO Wall, the mayor, and my fellow councillors for this discussion. I really enjoyed it. And I really do agree with most of what Councillor Grant proposed as well. I also want to say a big thank you to the development community who, I know we've had some disagreements, but I really do appreciate the input and the creative solutions and their commitment to creating affordable housing in Comox, because that's really what this policy is all about, to have more affordable places for Comox residents to live. The two key takeaways that I had from all the submissions that we had, numerous submissions from the development community, were, number one, we want to avoid de-incentivizing rental unit creation. So this split to have a lower amount for rental unit production makes a lot of sense to me. The other one was, this question of uncertainty versus certainty for developers as they're putting the business plans together. And while I think I prefer the percentage-based approach because it allows us to fluctuate with the market, and I understand the reason why that was proposed by staff, I think providing more certainty to developers as they create their business plan makes sense with a dollar per square meter per square foot approach. And as Councillor Grant said, I do recognize the current state of the real estate market, the labor shortages, supply chain issues, and the increasing interest rate, including a rate hike today, and many projects that have been in the works may actually be on hold for a while until market conditions change. So I'd like to propose an amendment based on what I've heard so far to increase the amount for rental units to to $50 per square meter and to $80 per square meter for condos and townhomes. I think this would allow us to have that split. If you look at it, previously we looked at 1.6%, going back to percentages, going down 0.4 takes us to 1.2 or $50 per square meter, and going up by the same amount brings us up to 1.8, or sorry, I meant to say 73, correction, not 80, 73. My apologies, I read the wrong thing on my own flip chart. So that would be, the equivalent of 1.2 and 1.8%. Sorry for the confusion, folks. I also think that this is way below what we had originally proposed, 2.5%. So I hope this is a well-received, happy medium where everyone can live with. It's maybe not perfect, but it's really good. And again, is going to allow more affordable places to live for Comox residents.
Second.
Okay. So don't want to get us tripped up here. So we have a motion, we have the amendments.
So was that, were you making an official amendment?
Making amendment, so we need a second. Okay, so Councilor Bissinger. Okay, so for discussion. Councilor Swift.
Thank you. I think one of the takeaways that I got from all the input from the developers was whatever decision we make is going to go through to the end user. So if we're going to charge more for rentals, it's going to make larger rent. And the same with a purchase on a condo. So I would be more comfortable with the lower end, with the idea that we can continue to look at this on an annual basis or whatever makes sense. And it's easier to be responsive to the market and go up rather than all of a sudden go down. So I would be most comfortable with the 0.6 for the renters, which is the 2,500. And I could be maybe convinced to go as high as 1.6 for the condos. But I think going beyond that is really moving the cost to the purchasers.
Comments?
Oh, is anybody else want to go first?
Yeah.
Basically, everything's been said, so not everything, but I'm not gonna reiterate a million times what's been said, but I just wanted to stress that I am absolutely happy about the rental and condo, the two rates. That was one of my big takeaways as well, was I did not want to disincentivize rentals, which is, so important to me personally. Yeah, I'm so grateful for this conversation and for everybody putting in everything, and it's just awesome to see. So, yeah, great conversation, and thank you for continuing to be kind about it.
Apologies, can you say one more time what your grades were?
I don't think I did. Yeah, I don't want to pass on anything. Like, I'd be comfortable for the rental between the 25 and 50. I wouldn't go any higher than that. And for market, I would prefer like the probably 73. Like, it's it just seems like it makes sense to me in my mind. All right.
Well, you know what, I'm just gonna see, you guys, you're pretty comfortable taking 5 minutes. I don't want to stop in the middle of this, but. Oh, sorry, taking a 5-minute recess, because I think we're gonna get going on this a little bit more, and Councillor McGowan, Dominions has to skedaddle home, and then you're going to log on with the, yeah. So 5-10 minutes, you'll just text us and when you're on. Okay. Yeah,
We'll make sure very clean.
Yeah.
And just moving forward, what we're going to do when we're going into these type of breaks is we'll leave the camera on, we'll mute the microphone, and then that way we don't have multiple videos on YouTube. It'll stay in one chunk.
And so a motion to recess for
Well, I
5
was
to
just
10
gonna
minutes.
say, since James is here, he made a special trip here. I assume you're here about your letter. Well, I think it. Okay,
All right.
we can wait.
So- Yeah, motion to recess.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Testing. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Thank you.
Can you hear us, Councillor Minions?
Yeah, so we'll call the meeting back to order, and Councillor Minions, you got us okay?
I can, thank you.
All right, great. So CIO, you ran off, got some colored markers.
Yeah, so this, what I did was I just took the ranges that we have and wrote them down. If there's two different sections, I did it by color as well with your initials. Are you going to send that to Councillor? Perfect. And what you can see is the range of what people had asked for. For the councillors that gave me a range for the two different ones, you can see two different sections. If I didn't have a range and I only got a point number from you, you'll see just your point for rental being up at the higher level and your point for the market units being at the lower. And so this was just to show what level of overlap and agreement there are. In my taking a look at it, there is no consensus possible. So council's going to have to either try and either move to consensus and or to set an amount where a majority agrees. This does not need to be a consensus decision either. So I'm happy to put more information up there as people move around and negotiate, but this is just a visual tool to help form the basis of the discussion to take place.
Well, that's great. Thank you. And Councillor Kerr, I think you were the last one speaking before we went. So would you like to continue on?
Sorry, just before we do that, I just remind council that we do have a motion and an amendment on the table. And Shelley, can you remind us what the amendment is?
The amendment is to increase the rental rate to $50 per square meter or 1.2%, and the multi rate to $73 for 1.8%.
So Councillor Kerr, go ahead.
So thank you, CEO Wall, for putting that graphic up there. It makes it easy to see. I think we have an idea, you know, how we feel about that. I would also just maybe slightly modify what Shelley said. It actually, both of these are actually decreases from the current policy from the 2.5%. So I would suggest we call the question on the amendment.
I'd like to speak before we.
Yeah, I was going to open it up.
Yeah, so I guess when you say it's a decrease, when you have I'll call it ridiculous amount to start with, and then you come down from that, I don't really consider that to be dropping it. I consider this to be getting back into a more realistic frame of where we should have been in the first place. But, you know, when you go to finance a rental building, you have to put all these costs in. So Councillor Swift is absolutely correct that this actually drives the price of rent up, because you have to put this in. When you go, you have to show a profit, or the bank doesn't lend you the money. And so all your costs have to go in first. So you have to be cognizant that you're adding to the rents when you do this, and you're adding to the top when you're selling. But I think what we're doing here is killing the goose that laid the golden egg. And I think that if you ask for too much, and I think that's what we're doing, that I think you're going to wind up getting far less, if any, into your coffers. You know, the theory seems to be here that you know, they're selling mountain bikes down the street for $4,000. So all of your shop and selling for $8 make twice as much money. That's not the way it works. You make nothing because you're asking too much.
Okay.
So I think that you know, I think that we're on the wrong track here and we're asking too much. So I won't be in favor of the amendment. I think we're overshooting in a marketplace that right now can hardly stand to be adding costs. You know, every person out there building anything is looking at ways to reduce costs so they can actually go forward, and we're adding.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Minions, did I see your hand up?
It was briefly, I'll just briefly speak to the amendment if you can hear me. Okay?
Yeah.
I was going to speak in favor of the amendment at the 1.2 and the 1.8, and I apologize, I don't have the map. I think that's the 5,000 for rentals and 8,000 for, sorry, $50 per square foot and a $73 per square foot differential with that hybrid model. If that makes sense. And I do understand the financial side of it and the cost of borrowing, but I think the reality is we want purposeful growth. We want builders that put forward, you know, like 695 Aspen, really well thought out plans that really give back the amenities to town. And we don't want to be building just any building to get housing in. We want it to be purposeful. You know, with housing, every resource of concrete and wood and things that are going into buildings, we only really want to see those. Can you hear me okay?
You're a little low. We're just hitting all these remotes here to try to increase it. So,
okay.
But I do understand that you're in favor of the amendment Councillor Curtis stated.
Okay, thank you for all factors. Sorry about the sound.
Okay, and okay, stand by one. We're just going to change something here.
Councillor Minions, can we do a sound check on you? You're muted, sorry.
Yeah, you're muted.
Yes, my button wasn't working. Apologies. Sound check.
That's better. One
That's
more
getting
time.
better.
Sound check.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so we got that from Councillor Minions. Any other comments on the amendment, which is the 1.2 or 50 and 73? Seeing none, all in favor? 4 in favor, opposed, 3 opposed. So the amendment is carried. And I think we're done with that.
Now you have the motion is amended.
Okay, so now the motion is amended. All in favor? And opposed? 3 opposed, and it's carried. Okay. So we are good with that.
So I think there's still,
Yeah, let me go back into this.
so council has, I believe, resolved recommendations 1 and 3. Recommendation 2, that the policy be further amended to provide clarity that cash and bill will be accepted by the town for multifamily developments.
Okay.
Is
Not
that?
been discussed.
So that's moved.
Could I just ask one question on what we just voted on? Does that include single family homes that come in and get zoning changes or not?
The single family home rate is the same as it was in the policy. as it
So
was
it's
adopted.
so the most expensive and wealthiest properties now have the lowest rate.
Correct.
That's sensible.
Okay.
So maybe I shouldn't have answered the question. Correct. So the policy for single family home contributions is $4,000. Council has the ability to make changes to that dollar amount. Staff didn't bring back recommendations to make changes to the single family home amount. That is something that council can do. In the staff report, the reasoning provided for why staff hasn't made changes to the single family home amounts is there. That's not to say that council can't make the changes. The reasoning provided in the staff reports are that the general philosophy of community amenities is that council is providing additional value in land when you go through upzoning. We don't have any areas in the town that are going to be going through upzoning in order to get single family. And so the only place that we would be able to add value to land in providing single family homes are the areas that we bring in from the Comox Valley Regional District. So in the future, there's going to be a minimal amount of areas. So you just have to remember, like if we're talking about Northeast Comox, that area is already zoned single family. You cannot get a community amenity contribution for affordable housing because it's pre-zoned. It wasn't that long ago when Comox was really driving to get development. And so the community went through and did those pre-zonings. So your opportunity to retain or gain funds from single family home construction is very limited and it's remote in time. You're probably not going to get any of those funds until well into the future as the community grows, if single family home construction is even in that area. Having said all that, that does not mean council cannot make changes to the amount, and the amount right now is $4,000 per single family home.
Councilor Bissinger? I wasn't sure if your hand was up or if you don't want to have a question, that's fine. Okay. All right, so what we are on now is this was number, was it two of the alternatives?
So that's the,
No, two of the recommendations. Okay, two of the recommendations that the policy be further amended to provide clarity that cash in lieu will be accepted by the town for multi-family development. So first and seconded, moved and seconded. So questions, comments on that? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Yes, yes.
So I'd like to propose that we increase the single family home contribution as per Councillor Grant's suggestion, that it be in line to 7,300 per lot. Put it in line with condos and townhouse developments, knowing that this is probably not going to be used in the future, and so in a very minimal amount, but at least it won't put us in a wide range of having the pyramid upside down. So I'll see if there's a seconder for that.
And I'll just because there was some more information there, I'll suggest the motion be that the policy be further amended to include a single family home amenity contribution amount of $7,300.
I'll second that.
Okay, for discussion. Councillor McGowan?
Yeah, no, I know that this might not come down the line for quite a while, but I think that that single family homes should not have the lowest rate, and to ensure that we keep moving the way that we want to, and to keep things equitable, having that rate the same would I think move towards that.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments on that? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And so we got 1, 2, and 3 done there. All right. Correct? Yeah, we're all done with that. Okay. Sorry, I gotta find my place here. Yeah, so now we have the OCP amendment 22-1. That's a tree cutting in hazardous areas, and we have some recommendations there. Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Carried. Number 3.
Second.
Any questions on that? I think we all agreed to that already. So all in favor? And number 4.
Second.
Okay, any questions on that? All in favor? And that's carried. Great, thank you. And okay, so this, sorry, my little back buttons, you know, the A1, 2, and all that are not working, so I'm having to go up here. So bylaw adoptions, Comox Business Regulation Bylaw number 1882/22 be adopted.
No.
second.
Questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. New business. It's getting to be that time. So the Comox General Local Election Appointment of Elections Officers.
Number 1.
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Carried. Number 2.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Great.
Second.
All in favor? Number 4,
Second.
all in favor? Great, all of them carried, thank you. So down to correspondence. We have the BC Games 55 plus BC Games application.
Second.
Okay, and CAO, I got a couple questions, unless there's anybody else has some questions first. When there's a few things on here, like the second paragraph, second sentence in there, we request the town of Comox endorse this process and commit to support this collaborative application with the donation in kind should be successful. So what kind of resources are we going to be looking at for this? What kind of dollars? What deadline are we looking at? This potentially, we could potentially be holding up this process if we don't agree to it, but it seems to be putting a lot of onus on us to commit to some money resources that we're short of. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's correct. Now, the request hasn't come to us to put any financial contributions in yet, or at least it hasn't come to us yet. And we know that the city of Campbell River, as well as Comox Valley Regional District, are both going to be making cash contributions to this, as well as in-kind support services and facilities. These type of events can be major undertakings for recreation departments. We don't know what is going to be asked and required of our recreation department. I would say that you're correct that the city of Courtenay has endorsed this, that CVRD has endorsed this, Campbell River obviously has. I'm not aware of what status is in Cumberland, but I would say probably Cumberland and Comox have the least amount of ability to absorb the type of organizational requirements that may come. I would hope that as we move through this, that it could be done in a joint fashion, with an understanding that we are very limited in the excess resources that we have for them. But these type of events can often require the dedication of a full-time staff member for years to organize and pull off. And then when you get to the events, it can be an all hands on deck for your entire recreation departments to manage them. Now, it appears, at least from what we've heard, that the ask for commitment to us are going to be to host maybe pickleball, ping pong, and a couple other minor events. So it may not be that large, and we don't know what level of involvement we're going to be asked to be involved in those. Is it something that we can look for volunteers? Are we going to be doing scheduling, reffing, all of those sorts of things? So we've asked those questions. We don't have answers, and unfortunately, I cannot give any to council right now.
Is there ability to get grants for some of this through the province for support?
No. This would have to be, our contribution would be through the dedication of our staff and facilities to host these.
Okay, Councillor Grant.
So is it fair to just receive this until we hear back and then we get some more detail? I mean, all
Well,
we've done
we
is vote
do-
on the seat so far.
We do have 2 motions that they have here.
Yeah, but our
and-
motion was just to receive, so I'm saying if we
Yeah,
just
yeah.
receive it and then wait till we get more of the information, we can deal with it once we know what
Is-
they're asking.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. They're hoping to submit, I think, by the end of the month. So council's not going to have another opportunity to really take a good look at this. We've asked for more information on a few occasions, and what we were able to get back was what I just told you, is that we're likely going to be looking at hosting the ping pong and pickleball. It may grow from that, it may shrink. So I think council, you're absolutely within your rights to ask for more information on this before you commit. But I just want to highlight the deadline that they have. I understand that council's in a tough position on this, and I apologize. I don't have the information you'll need to feel comfortable.
Okay. Councillor Kirk.
Question the CAO, if the second sentence said consider instead of commit, town of Comox will consider providing in-kind support, would that make you more comfortable, on behalf of the town and our resources, to at least allow them to put in the application with Comox as a supporter, but we haven't committed to anything at this time?
Yeah, that's fine with me. I know that won't be what they're looking for. But yeah, it's okay with me. I'm happy with whichever direction council goes. It's ultimately, council are the risk, you know, the risk managers, you guys take those risk decisions for the organization. I'm okay either way. I just wanted to highlight to you that I cannot tell you what you're committing to if you do commit to it. So I'm okay with what you suggest.
Well, I'm in a compromising kind of mood tonight, as you can tell. So I think I'd like to find a middle ground here and see if we can provide them what they need for the application. So I'd like to move, as the motion is on page 127 of the agenda, removing the words commit to and instead inserting consider.
Okay, so seconder?
So my question here, though, is whose motion is this? Like, is this a deadline that the city of Campbell River is asking for just because they want to know? Or is there some sort of deadline that they need to know sooner?
They need,
Because I don't actually like, say, well, we'll sort of semi-commit and then back out later. I'd rather know up front. I mean, I get where you're coming from and it's a good compromise, but I far prefer to say yes or no rather than do it that way. So I don't know who's asking for this. Is this like the BC Summer Games Commission has a deadline date that says you got to know by such day?
yeah, I believe it's to get in for the grant application for the application deadline. And then if Comox didn't provide that support or provided after, I'm not familiar with this group specifically. This is a new group as well. When you're talking about grant applications, you get support letters in after the application deadline all the time. I would suspect that that's probably okay in this situation as well, but not being familiar and with this being a new group, I don't know, but I believe that the deadline request is in order to get all the information in order to submit it as per the application deadline. I also don't know that you'll have any more information in a month than you have now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably not.
yeah.
You're right.
All right, so we have Councillor Swift.
I was just going to say, it was already voted in favor at the CDRD, and it sounds like Courtney's gone ahead with it. And I think we're pretty much, we probably need to support this, at least at this application stage, because we need to be supporting our communities and beyond. So I'm in favor of supporting it, although I agree that it's a little foggy. I did have some correspondence with one of the councillors probably about 2 months ago regarding this. And I said, well, what would we be asked to do? And I sent him a huge list of questions. And of course, he didn't have any of the answers because right now they're just at the application stage. So I think I would be in favor of supporting it, even though we're not exactly sure what we're committing to.
So we have Councillor Grant, then we have amendment from Councillor Kerr, and Councillor Swift is suggesting that we approve it. So I guess on the amendment. Yeah,
I believe Councillor Grant moved receipt, and then did we vote on that? I believe, no, we haven't. Okay, so it is amendment.
I think that's fine. Let's go that way. Yeah.
okay. So on receipt, all in favor? All right, that's carried. So now we have the standalone motion of the changing the wording. So we discussed all that. All in favor of that? That's carried. And do we want to do anything else with this thing? No. Okay. All right. So we'll send that off, and we will get that wording in there. Okay. So then the next piece of correspondence we have is the Comox Valley Sewage Service Establishment Bylaw Amendment number 2.
Second.
Any questions on that? All in favor? That's carried. And then is the next piece the same one? Okay, so then we have the, sorry, I'm not able to jump way back up here. So then,
I believe this is just the information attached.
okay, that's the one attached to it. Okay. So let me just go down. All right, sorry. Yeah, so yeah. I'm frozen. No, they're not. No. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's not cool. We just passed that. Yeah, yeah. So we're at James Taylor's.
Something on the CPRD, they want us to consent to the actual agreement.
Yeah, we need to. Oh, okay. So.
Second.
Okay, and any questions or comments on that? All in favor? All right, thank you. And moving down to the last bit, that's from James Taylor regarding the parade and the use of the one of the sale buildings.
Second.
Any questions on that? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So, yeah. Yeah, see, when I try to go up, it doesn't go up, and then it freezes, so then I can't even move up that way. I think it's just getting old. Yeah. Any questions from the public? Nothing. Okay, so from council, we'll start with Jonathan, and we'll go clockwise.
Thank you very much. So I attended the Lazo Road Widening Open House last week, which was really interesting. Learning about improving the safety and installing some bike lanes, decreasing the speed and protecting the natural environment. It's well attended and had lots of great conversations with residents. Thanks to those of you that attended and the public that attended our community listening event on the theme of resilience this past Sunday, held at Hillberg Heritage Lodge and Park. We had over 200 people attending and 35 community groups participating. I attended a workshop that was held over a couple of days along with the mayor, called The Emerging Future of Primary Care in the Comox Valley, looking at, again, recruiting doctors and how physicians and other allied healthcare workers work in our community and how we can attract more. I met with 2 local homeowners recently that are applying to subdivide their lots to create more infill housing options within town. And many of us, I know, attended the Local Government Climate Action Plan webinar today. And interesting to hear about the flexibility in funding. It seems to be a kind of renewed climate action revenue incentive program that was stopped a year or 2 ago. And it's going to be a more equitable process for municipalities to participate. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. And finally, I just want to say that I'm really proud of council and town staff for the work on this affordable housing topic, which kind of came to a close temporarily at this meeting. And we did conduct a lot of consultations. We provided the developers with more certainty to establish their business cases. We decreased the contributions, and we've also preferentially incentivized the creation of more rental units. So we've thought about it, we've listened, we've attempted to establish a middle ground, and I think it's a solution that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Swift.
Thank you. I attended the CVRD regular board meeting where we heard from the Comox Valley Land Trust, and they were speaking in support of the Regional Park Service. We also talked about the poverty reduction grant. There was an update. The Comox Valley Health Network was going to act as the lead organization, but they've decided against it, and the application to continue has been withdrawn. So the CVRD will look for opportunities to work on some of the game changers that were listed in the initial grant. There was a grant status report, and they talked about the announcements usually being tied to when the project begins. So there was a list, but they will be revealed as they're being enacted. We talked about the regional parks and trail service, and we talked about the guiding principles such as reconciliation, environmental protection, connectivity, fiscal responsibility, and they're moving forward with continuing to hammer out the details of trying to figure out how to get this service up and going. I attended the early childhood education and care walk that took place on the weekend at the air park, and that was interesting. And I attended the Philburg board meeting, and just a reminder, it's National Gardens Day on the June 18th, and they're doing, I don't know if event is the correct word, but they're, featuring their picking garden, and then there's horticulturalists going to be on deck. And it goes from 9 till 12. And there's also an opportunity to volunteer at the festival. If you're interested, you can go on to the philburgfestival.com to volunteer. There's a form to fill out. And I have to say, they have almost completed the installation of the fire suppression system, and they're absolutely thrilled. And for Gord's information, the company that was doing the installation was fantastic. So it's all good news on that front. Yesterday, there was a special meeting at the CBRD, and it was all around climate issues. There was a talk called Let's Talk Climate, and the presentation was by Tina Willard-Stepan, explaining what climate change is. And she was optimistic. So that was really nice to hear, because it's not a topic that people are very optimistic about very often. And some of the things that are already going on, and I think it's easy to overlook. So I'm really anxious to hear about some of the things that we're doing and just be reminded. But the food hub and the airshed roundtable, coastal flood mitigation, composting, and those kinds of issues that we're talking about, where there are initiatives that are already happening. And the focus is going to be on, generally at the CBRD, the focus, they're trying to reduce greenhouse gas. Focus is going to be on areas within their mandate. So they were talking about corporate energy emissions plan, and they're going to use the figure of $160 per ton for calculations to guide decision making, which is about $110 per ton more than has been used in calculations up till now. CBRD electoral areas, GHG inventory, and they want to include emissions from the municipalities. So we're going to be asked to work alongside that to get an inventory for the valley. Land use, agriculture and forest account for 26% of the GHG, 23% for passenger and commercial vehicles. There was a corporate carbon neutral update, and they're going to buy credits with the Thermal Residential Heating Aggregation Project, which is a Canada-wide project, and it replaces conventional residential fossil fuel combustion heating with solar heating systems in private residences and commercial swimming pools. There was the local government climate action launch, and the CBRD has received $120,000 to work for, so that was, or to work with. So that was what we were hearing about today. The residential retrofit market acceleration, they are working on some new rebates and making some of them income-based rather than just applying. And they'd like to accelerate the retrofits, and not just heat pumps, but insulation and those other kinds of things, to have your home assessed and figure out where you can fix it. And 100, I believe it was 100 heat pumps were installed but the target was 700, so there's a ways to go. So they're continuing to work on that. There was a really interesting report on regional transportation mobility. Automobiles still account for 75% of all our trips, and the bus is still at 2. But wanting to shift to more sustainable modes of transport, walking, cycling, and riding the bus. And there were some initiatives like ride sharing, digital door-to-door, and so on that are being considered. And possibly removing some incentives to drive. So less parking fees, that kind of thing. And they're really wanting regional collaboration on all those things. And there was the possibility of micro mobility, such as e-scooters and electric bikes. There's going to be a staff report coming on the possibility of a pilot program for e-bikes. So we'll have to wait and see what that looks like. Or the other option was maybe considering some rebates for e-bikes. So there's lots of work being done at that level. So then there was the CAO letter that was coming, asking for our support from our staff and for all these initiatives that are going forward. And then I attended the webinar today on the local government climate action program. So yeah, that's my report.
Well, you take notes like a school teacher.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of stuff, and actually, yesterday's session at the regional district special meeting with all these this real climate focus was really interesting. And I would encourage you to actually go in and read some of those reports, because there was just a ton of really good information in all of them.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. That was very good. Councillor McGowan.
Thank you. That mine will be significantly shorter. We've all been sick in my house the last couple of weeks. So I also attended the climate action webinar and the community listening event. I've had many conversations with community members about a variety of different things. But I missed Museum and Archives, as well as Food Policy Council from being ill. My apologies.
Okay, we'll go with Councillor Minions, since she's up in the screen in front of me there.
Sure. Thanks. Hopefully sound is okay still.
Yeah.
I attended the LG CAP Zoom today, which was the replacement of the CARET program for provincial funding. And that was complicated. So very grateful for staff for the work they do on managing what the province has out there. It's very complicated, different program funding streams. So grateful that staff can look into those. I talked to a resident and met in regards to the subdivision variants that might be coming up. Attended the opening of the community listening event from the Community Health Network, and I believe Councillor Kerr, and that was really great for the portion that I was able to attend. Had a regular restorative justice meeting where it was mostly budget focused and kind of winding down for the summer months, but looking at getting those community police referrals over to restorative justice back up, since they've seen a bit of a decline in the COVID years, but they're just starting to see more referrals coming through from all the different streams. So that was positive news. And a couple of different meetings on this affordable housing contribution fund, talking to a couple of finance people and a couple other developers as well to try to get to that middle ground number we got to tonight. Thank you. And thank you for allowing me to be on Zoom the last hour here. I really appreciate that accommodation tonight.
Yeah, no, it's great to keep you engaged here. Councillor Grant.
Yeah, I attended all the RD things that Maureen talked about. So I was going to give my 9-page, but no, I'll leave it at that. So the interesting part was they had the seminar yesterday on climate change, was called KEEP, which is Corporate Energy Emission Plan. And their plan is to do a 50% reduction in the next 7 years and down to 0 by 2050. But when you read the plan, it said the detailed analysis, business plan, and the outline of how they're going to do it is all coming later. in that report, it also says that the implementation is going to require significant upfront funding, and then hopefully you get your money back through savings of not using fossil fuels in the future. But they didn't really have much of an idea of where that cost was going to come from. So I think that there's still a lot of work to be done to see where this goes and how it works. It's very laudable what they want to do. I'm just not sure if there's enough reality and how much that upfront funding is. The other thing, I had a couple of calls from two older guys about our tax rates, and they're very confused because we said we raised our taxes by what, about 4.5% or 5%, and they were saying, well, no, my bill adds up to 9%. And so I explained it all to him. He said, well, that's a good explanation, but I still have to pay 9%. So, I think it indicates to me that, we're pushing the envelope pretty hard on the taxes. And just because we go 4%, we still have to account for all that other that comes in. And so I think we need to be really cognizant of that as we go forward and how we're spending our dollars. So that's what I did.
Thank you, Councillor Bissinger.
Thanks. Also attended the local government climate action webinar today. Met with two homeowners in reference to some subdivisions, and then one resident on Buena Vista in reference to a coach house. Variance that will be coming to us in August. Attended the open house for the Lazo Road widening, so that's pretty well attended. And then attended a nautical days committee meeting with Councillor Kerr. So talked about parking and potentially having a shuttle. Huge need for more volunteers. So I know Councillor Kerr sent a few emails out to his network. Just wanted to chat about the mayor's lunch or not. And then just to give everyone sort of a summary, so there will be some nautical theme activities. I know we had mentioned it last time. There's the Build, Bail, and Sail, the Bullhead Derby, a dinghy sailboat race on Sunday. I think Compass Adventures will be doing some sailing or catamaran tours. And they're still working on the fish toss competition. They just can't find someone to donate fish. Yeah. And then there's, we're also going to be having a waste sorting kiosk. So that's pretty cool. The Forage Club is going to manage that, and we're still looking for volunteers to sort of take it over for the rest of the weekend. But I guess we can chat about more of the details or questions later. Yeah. That's it.
Great, thank you. For myself, just kind of backing up a bit, on the weekend, I attended the Highland graduation, and I wanted to acknowledge the two valedictorians, Will Hatch being one. Will, we know, who's come to talk to us about climate initiatives, and a very bright young man who's going off to university, and Emma Warren, who is James Warren, Deputy CAO from Regional District. Their daughter is also the other valedictorian. Emma and a fellow by the name of Eli Blasco, who I believe is Dr. Terry Blasco's grandson, both got the Osler Shield Award, which is a very prestigious award for the highest grades, the best sportsmanship, best all-around person. And it was very impressive to see those two up there, and it was a surprise for them, and I believe their families. So congratulations to them. With Jonathan, Councillor Kerr, I attended the Emerging Future of Primary Care, and it's good just to sit around in different groups of people, whether it was a doctor, whether it was somebody working with VIHA, and it's well done. Stocky Edwards service, that was very moving service. It was a combination of military service and a Roman Catholic service. And then, we all heard the flyby after that, the two jets and then the helicopter after. Attended the Cumberland Victoria Day celebrations, and they sure do a good job. They have a great turnout of people there, and that was well received. The Philberg, the listening event that was happening on Sunday, I was able to go to that and spent a couple hours and chatted with some people, and well done to the organizers. Went to a Chamber of Commerce mixer last night. I met with some residents regarding some zoning concerns that they had, some phone calls. I attended the Air Cadets, I think it was a 386 Squadron. They have their ceremony, and that was by Zoom. I did that, and the Lazo open house at the fire hall. Spent a bit of time there, and just think you all got the comments from that. So that's all I have, and nothing else. A motion to adjourn. All in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Minions, if you could just stand by there and